Hello, beautiful. Get your coffee. It's time for Coffee with Matilda, a journey to self. And we are back with another episode of how to become your own CEO. Your CEO of your life.
The CEO
And
of your
I'm
life.
with my co host, Nathalie Delaine. Hello,
Hello.
Nathalie.
Hi, guys. How are you?
How's everything?
Everything is really good. Really
Today,
good.
today we have a very personal podcast with Natalie. We're gonna go over an experience she went through, and I thought it's relevant to talk about it because lots of us, lots of us women might be experiencing this particularly, or even men in other areas in their life, maybe, and how to overcome, for example, a surgery and you know feel good again can be an interesting element to listen. So, Natalie, tell us about your experience.
Yeah,
What do you want to share with us today?
sure. So thank you so much. I think first I'm going to say this is a very important topic, and I'm really happy to be speaking about it, and that I'm going to be speaking from my experience, and that I'm in no way a doctor or a healthcare professional. This is mostly just my story. So I don't want people to say, oh, well, she said go to the doctor and do this. No, no, no. This is my story, my suggestions. So, almost 2 months ago, I had a myomectomy, an abdominal myomectomy. And what that is a surgery to remove fibroids that have grown inside your uterus. So, most women, we all know about our uterus. The uterus is where when you're pregnant, that's where the baby grows inside the uterus. So it's a very important reproductive organ for women. Um, and things can happen. So I think let's go back about 2 years ago. I meditate, as we know, because it's one of the things I talk about almost every podcast. So I meditate, and sometimes I meditate laying down. And about 2 years ago, when I would lay down and meditate, I would kind of feel a little bump, a tiny bump on the right side of my lower pelvis area. And then, I
Oh,
would kind of
wow.
feel it
Bump.
like a little, like a
Yeah.
little, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing major. It didn't hurt. Like I would press it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I kind of ignored it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then about a few months after that, I went to the doctor, my annual doctor exam. He asked me to do a sonogram of my uterus and my pelvic area. And I said, well, why? He's like, well, I do this for all my patients. And so I said, okay. So I did it, and I was a little nervous because I've never
Mm-hmm.
done this before.
Yeah.
Um, I go in and it's just a technician, so it's not even a doctor. It's just someone that actually just takes the pictures and puts it's kind of like the same
Uh-huh.
when you're pregnant and they do the little machine and you can see inside and he takes pictures. So this man says to me, and I'm by myself, he says, oh, you have a lot of fibroids. And I was like, huh? He's like, yeah, the doctor's gonna have to take out your uterus. And I was like,
What?
excuse me? He was like, yeah, this is too many. This is really
Uh,
big. And I was like, okay, kind of in shock. As soon as I left the office, I called my mom, I called my sister, and I was just crying. And I was like, this man just said, I'm going to have to take out my uterus. And I was about 40 years old at the time. And I still don't have children. I didn't have children then. And I was unsure, but if you take out your uterus, you can't have children. So I just started crying and I started freaking out. And then I called the doctor and I spoke to the doctor and he explained that yes, I had large fibroids. I had some large ones and I had some small ones. And I had several. So he said that the best thing would be is to have surgery, and that no, he didn't need to take out my uterus. That the technician that said that should not have said that. And
exactly. Now I'm thinking you can sue her.
that's exactly what my friend said. That like that person should not have said any of those things. But like
Exactly.
for a week, I was in a panic attack. So this is lesson number one. Like if you get news and you get results, like double check it with doctors right away because not everyone knows what they're saying and knows what they're doing. So that started my journey, and this was the beginning of 2020. So
And then COVID happened.
Yeah. So 2020, we took we did an ultrasound, he did a bunch of tests, and we saw that there were some large ones. He's like, yeah, the best idea is to have surgery. So in January of last year, 2020, I scheduled a surgery for April. And I was ready, and I was like, okay, I want to do
Okay.
it. And he told me that it would be not that evasive, and he made me feel okay about it. But from
Yeah.
January to April, so many things happened. Besides COVID, I started to panic. I started to feel scared about surgery. I started to worry. I just wasn't feeling the surgery. I started to do research, which is another key thing. I started to say, well, what can I do naturally to help my body shrink them? Because it's possible to shrink them. So what fibroids are, they're non-cancerous growths that
Uh-huh.
form in your uterus. And the reason that they grow is from our own bodies. So our hormones, our estrogen and our progesterone that happens in women's bodies is what makes fibroids appear and then grow. And every month when we have our cycles, if you have them, they will most likely grow because we have our cycles every month. And there's nothing we can do because we have hormones and we have all the things in our body, especially for women that are in their childbearing years. Then COVID happened, and I said, oh, good. I didn't want to do the surgery anyway. So I was like, I want to cancel the surgery or postpone it. This was last March, almost a year ago. I said, I don't want to do it. And I kind of blamed it on COVID, but mostly I was just relieved. I didn't want to do the surgery. I was scared. I was worried. I didn't really like the doctor. I didn't feel comfortable. So they said, okay, sure, we'll postpone it. Then I started my journey of, I'm
But
going to do this
why?
on my own.
Did you think that if you postpone this procedure, we? I mean, it's not like it's gonna go away. I mean,
Yeah,
the problem is
exactly.
there, and it's a health problem. So, what was the
Exactly.
thought process that you're postponing?
I really thought that I could change my lifestyle and start to shrink them on my own. And there are ways of doing it, but that's what I was focused on. I was like, okay, it's COVID. I don't want to be in the hospital. I don't want to have surgery. What can I do myself to help shrink them? So I did a bunch of research, and I don't know if you've heard of this. There's something that's called vagina steaming. So basically, it's like a tea, right? Same concept. You put a bunch of herbs in water, you boil it, and then you sit over a pot and with naked,
This
and you
is
have
very
like
interesting.
it's super interesting. You put a blanket around you, you sit over a pot, and you just let the steam come up into your vagina. And the certain herbs that you place there uh, have medicinal
Wow.
properties. So I tried that, and then I noticed that I wasn't as disciplined with it. And so all of last year, I was suffering because they were getting bigger, and I can tell.
How could you tell? Is it your
With
body was function?
I started to look pregnant. So same thing that happens when you're pregnant, something is growing in your uterus. That was happening to me. So let's say from January to let's go to halfway through the year. So last June, it was my birthday. I was wearing bathing suits. I live in Florida, so it's hot all the time. And I started to feel uncomfortable in my bathing suits because I started to look pregnant and I wasn't pregnant. And not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's not the way my body normally is. And then the biggest thing that was starting to happen were my menstrual cycles. They were changing rapidly. And the biggest thing was that I was having extremely heavy flow. And I mean, to the point that like I would feel weak because I'm losing so much,
Mm.
to the point that like I would have accidents at work, I would have accidents at home, I would have accidents in my bed, I would have accidents sitting on the couch watching TV. Like the amount of blood that I was losing was And I was like, really? He was like, yeah, this is just the way it is now. And so I accepted it. And I didn't realize at the beginning is that when you have fibroids, it causes heavy bleeding.
Yeah.
I didn't have pain other than the regular menstrual cramps, but the bleeding was really intense. So by June of last year, I started to feel sick. I started to feel bigger, and my self-esteem just went down. Like I felt like I didn't know my body. I felt like something was growing inside of me and I didn't know what it was, and I was afraid of it.
You know, the idea in your back of your head, the what the technician was told you and what the doctor was saying, even you want to do your own research and you want to do, I don't know, heal your body yourself, sit on a pot or dance in a
Mhm.
pot. The fact that you have such an important news about your own body, about your health, I don't think you can function normal. Even if you say, I'm very strong, I don't think about it. That's with you every second. Maybe you don't think about it consciously, but your subconscious mind is heavy with that
Mhm.
idea. And I think it affects your whole day.
It started to, and I didn't realize it. My ex-partner at the time, he would tell me. He was like, I find that your energy is different some days.
Yeah.
And I would just say, no, I'm fine. Or he'd say, I noticed that your sexual activity or sexual desire has decreased.
Uh-oh.
Are you back?
Yes,
Okay,
I guess I lost you for a couple of seconds.
okay. So my
Yeah.
ex-partner at the time would tell me my sexual appetite, my desire, I really didn't have desire. Uh, Things started happening to me. And instead of talking to others, instead of looking for help, instead of looking for support and doing research, I went within and I didn't talk about it.
And you shut down.
I shut down and I didn't talk about it. And I just would hate every month when I knew that my moon cycle, I call my menstruation my moon cycle. When my
Hmm.
menstruation would come, I would hate those weeks before because I knew it was coming. And then when it was there, I would literally close all my doors and not talk to anybody for a week. Like
Mm.
I felt alone. Like I felt very alone and my body was changing. I didn't understand what was happening to it. I was having these awful periods. And the doctors are telling me this is the new normal. And I was honestly, instead of addressing it, I ignored it all, which was probably not a good idea. Um,
And I
so,
think one element I wanna clarify this, because it was about uterus and it was about womanhood and your femininity. I think for a woman that's a very important element. If it was maybe something else, maybe it wouldn't affect you this much, but you knew it's about your womanness in a way. Um, I'm sure that was emotionally affecting you the most.
it it was draining. Like I realized that in the back of my head, I kept saying, I don't. There's something wrong with my woman reproductive area. And it was like a
Mm.
constant story. Like there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with my woman area. There's something, and
Mm.
I started to feel like I didn't have children. What if I never could have children? I didn't want that decision to be taken away from me.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing if I decide, okay, I don't want to have children, but it's another thing that you just don't no longer have the option. And then I felt sad. I felt sad all the time. And I didn't talk about it, I didn't tell anybody. And all this time, the fibers were just getting larger and larger and larger because I could feel it. And at this point, I didn't even have to lay down to feel it. I could just feel them when I was standing up. or I could just feel it in certain clothing, and people would ask me, "Oh, are you pregnant?" And then I would get even more sad because then I was like, I'm not pregnant, but what if I can no longer have children? And all these things were going on inside my head and inside my body, and I started to like hate my body. And I'm not a typical hate towards myself is not something that I do anymore, but this whole experience really started to make me feel like my body wasn't mine and I didn't like it. Um,
Oh, wow.
and
Nathalie, this is heavy.
it's heavy. It's so heavy.
I mean, uh, 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 besides the element of being in your uterus, were you thinking this might be a possibility of becoming a, for example, God forbid, cancer?
Well, the good thing with that is that fibroids are never they never become cancerous for the most part. Right? Again, I'm not a doctor, but the way they're formed and what they are, those cells
Mhm.
don't become cancer. So that at least felt better. Um, so one part that I'm forgetting to share in this story is that my mother had a fibroid in her uterus too, and she had a hysterectomy. So a hysterectomy is when they remove
Move your uterus.
your uterus and your ovaries and like everything, right? Like so you can no longer have children. And my mom had already had me, my family, her family, so and she was older. But because that was my experience of a
Yeah.
uterus, a fibroid, like I was so afraid that they were going to take away my ovaries and my ability to have children, my ability to be a woman, my ability to have menstrual cycles. Like I was just constantly scared, but I wasn't talking about it. And looking back now, I see that. But in that moment, I thought I was just being brave and tough, but I was suffering the whole time by myself.
And
Um,
sorry, I want to say,
mhm.
if you have fibroids, you cannot have children either, no? Can you? No, you
So,
can.
so this is
You couldn't become pregnant.
so yes. If you have fibroids, you mean while you have
Yeah,
fibroids?
while you have.
It's possible. It depends. So the fibroids have three places where they can kind of attach to, like on the inside, on the front, and on the back. So depending on where they are in your body, it's possible. And if they're small, right? If they're super, super tiny, like a little dot, then yeah, it's possible. Um, for me, mine were too large. So
Mm.
there was no space for another and women we are all so different, right? Everyone's uterus size is different. Some are thinner, some are larger, some are wider. So it depends on the person. And again, I'm not a doctor, but for my body, it was not possible. And
Ah,
so when I made my appointment for the surgery last January, he told me that if I didn't have surgery and remove them, that I would most likely, if I got pregnant, I would miscarry.
mm.
And then he said if he removed them, that it would almost be the same story. He said that because they were so big, shaped, it kind of changed the shape of my uterus so that a normal baby wouldn't be able to like fit in the right way and that I would miscarry. So,
So surgery was an inevitable event for you.
yes, even though I was pushing it off, I just didn't want it. So the rest of the year goes by. I'm suffering in silence. My birthday, Halloween comes, Christmas comes. And then this year, at the end of last year, I really started to feel bad. And I went to a new doctor. And this doctor changed my life. He gave me hope. He asked me questions. He listened to me. He asked me what I wanted. The other doctors that I saw never asked me that. This one did. He asked me, he's like, do you want to have kids or do you want the choice? And I said, yes. And he was like, okay. He's like, we'll make that happen. And he told me that the way he does it is that he reshapes the uterus for me. And
Oh,
so, yeah, I was just like, I felt like I had woken up from a bad dream. And then he was like, we should schedule your surgery for as soon as possible because they are large. And so he measured me, and I was 17 weeks. That's how they measured, but I was about 17 weeks pregnant. And so, of course, I looked pregnant to people who didn't know me. Like 17 weeks is a pretty large. So the largest one was about 5 centimeters. I'm not good at showing, but like they were taking up space. So he told me that at the end of last year that I should schedule the surgery for as soon as I could. And I said, yes, let's do it. And I was so happy that I decided to do it with him. So he suggested an abdominal myomectomy. What that is basically like a C-section. They cut into my abdomen, remove the things that don't belong, and then they sew me back up. So this pretty much, if most women have had C-sections, you know that it's a pretty fairly good sized cut, and then they open you very, very much, and then they take out, and then they like put it all back. So that was the option that was best for me. And I'm going to stress this to women who are listening to this. There are so many options. Like, don't ever let a doctor say, oh, let's just do this way, or you need a hysterectomy. Like, always go to multiple doctors because there are at least 8 different ways of removing fibroids. Like, and depending on the size and depending on your body and depending on your age, it's very different. So do your research before you say yes. And so I scheduled my surgery for February 2nd of this year, so about 2 months ago, and it was stressful. I was like, am I ready? What's going to happen to me? I don't know. I was nervous. I was super nervous all the time, especially because the recovery. They told me that I would not be able to work out or walk, that I would need to rest, right? That this is
yeah.
it's
Hmm.
a big procedure. And so that part of it was hard for me too, because I typically work out 3 to 4 times a week. I walk every day, I run, I ride my bicycle. And then I was like, wait, you want me to do nothing for a month or more? And he said, yeah, you get to just recover. Strangely, that made me nervous. Like I was just like, wait, I'm just gonna lay down every day and do nothing. Um, So I was nervous about that. I was nervous about a lot of things.
Wow, that's a what's it? 2020 was a crazy year for you.
2020 was very crazy for me. Um,
But listen, 2021 was a beautiful year because you got rid of what was extra in your body.
mhm, mhm. So I finally
And
had the surgery.
tell us about the surgery day.
Surgery day was actually not that scary, except for because we're living in the times of COVID, nobody could come into the office with me, into the hospital with me. So literally, I got dropped off at the door, and then I was by myself the whole time. And so that made me nervous because like I wanted my family to be there when I woke up and I came out of anesthesia, and like just knowing that I would be by myself. And if that's a concern for anyone that's listening, do not worry about it because the nurses and the doctors and the staff, I felt like I was never alone the whole time. In fact, one
Oh,
time I had 3 nurses in my room and they were all like doing things for me, and it was the most beautiful thing. And I'll backtrack, but don't be nervous about the COVID thing and not having anybody in the hospital because it's okay. I survived it, you can survive it. So I go in for surgery, everything is fine. I I don't really remember much because they gave me total anesthesia. I do remember the nurses prepping me, putting up my hair, putting the stuff, and I had my little backpack. I had my book and my little crystals.
mm-hmm.
And then I remember waking up, but seeing my doctor, and my doctor had my hand in his hand, and he kept going like this. And I know he was talking, but I don't really remember what he was saying. But he was just kind of like holding my arm and saying, like, good job, kind of, right? Like everything's fine, you're good. And
Good.
so then the next 12 hours I was pretty much in and out of sleep. The drugs are strong. I don't take drugs, so the drugs are really strong. Um, I would call some family and friends in between, and they would tell me that I sounded drugged up. I was talking super slow and super low. Um, and I spoke to my sister, and my sister told me that the doctor removed 13 fibroids from my body.
Wow,
And
13.
I said, wait, what? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, no. She's like, yeah, Nat. And I was shocked. And then I saw the doctor, and he told me that there were actually 15 fibroids in my uterus, but two of them were in places that he couldn't remove. So he injected them with some medicine that would make them shrink. And the other 13 he removed. And he showed me a picture. And I have that picture if you care to see it.
Yeah, let's see it.
Okay.
Whoever gonna get scared, don't watch it.
Yeah, this is going to be a little bit graphic, so I'm just letting you know now. So this is what was inside.
Whoa. This is crazy, Natalie.
Hmm.
Wow. So
So I have,
glad you got to remove it. Otherwise, how, I mean, you couldn't continue even if you didn't want to have children. The continuation of it would have been dangerous for you, no?
yes, they would have just kept growing. And that's the thing too, like fibroids grow, they continue to grow as long as, well, okay, so if I hit menopause, then no, because the hormones and estrogen and progesterone, you don't really make that anymore. But before menopause, and I'm far from menopause years, they will continue to grow. So when he showed me that picture and when I was out of surgery, I think I started crying because I was so afraid for so long to do something to my body and to have someone go and cut me. And but then afterwards, and when I saw that picture, and and the doctor told me that my life will be different and that I will heal, I just started crying. I had all this weight and all these things inside of me for almost 2 years, because
Wow.
the first year I didn't even go to the doctor really and talk about it. And then the second year, COVID happened, so I kind of ignored it. But for 2 years, I had all this like it's almost like I had shame, like I was ashamed of my body, and just I kept saying like, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? And I was really relieved when I had the surgery, and now I'm on my healing journey.
That's beautiful, Natalie. Wow. I hope whoever is listening, they can relate to it, that, you can be scared, but when you have to do something, you have to do something, because you cannot play with your health. You cannot play
No.
with your, and thank God this was not maybe something very serious to threaten your life. But imagine some people postpone their maybe cancer surgeries because they're afraid, and that fear make them freeze. But they don't realize that maybe if you're not going to check up, you're not doing your um, you know going to doctors and be attentive to your body, you are doing a big harm to you.
Mhm.
And that cancer grows and becomes different stages. So Natalie, now how do you feel? How does
Oh my goodness. So the healing, I'm not going to lie, the first 2 weeks, oh la la, it was painful. It
it's
was
like how many days you were in hospital?
2 days, just 2 nights. Actually, it was only supposed to be one night. Um, but I ended up staying 2 nights because I have stairs. I have a lot of stairs to climb to get to my house, to where I live. And he said that stairs is difficult because pretty much anything that you use with your abdominals, you can't, because it's tender and it just got cut open.
Mhm.
So they let me stay for 2 nights, which I was so grateful because I loved my nurses. Um, but the first 2 weeks were rough. I have never experienced pain in that way. I'm a dancer, so I'm always moving. Even if it's like I'm always moving and I couldn't do this and I couldn't do this and like I couldn't, it was strange for me not to be able to move my body. It was strange for me to not be able to walk. One of the hardest things too was I could not get in bed and out of bed by myself. I needed someone to put me inside and to take me out every day for about a week.
So people who give birth, like do cesarean and stuff, it's the same thing.
That's exactly what I
You don't have to
say.
take care of a child too, a
Yeah,
baby too. Oh,
to all the mothers in the world out there, you're all incredible creatures. And yes, they do it. And I mean, maybe not the first or second or third day, but after 3 days, they're picking up their babies and doing what they have to do. And I'm amazed. I am so amazed. And I asked a couple mothers, and you know what they told me? They say that it's different. They're like, you do it because it's your child. You do it because you have to. Like, there's not even the thought that you can't do it. They just automatically do it. So I'm amazed by moms because I couldn't get myself out of bed. So,
maybe
uh,
that's why they say it's easier to do the natural birth. Yeah.
yes, because you heal faster and you don't have that feeling of not being able to use your midsection. Um,
Oh wow.
it was very humbling for me
Did you have
because
help? Did you
I
have
had so much help. I had friends, I had my family. It was a beautiful time for me because I'm not very good at asking for help. I like to do things on my own. I am very independent. I love doing my things and getting them done, and I had no choice. I had no choice. I couldn't wash the dishes. I couldn't do
the
laundry.
dishes are good. You're like, oh
Yeah,
no.
that's fun. You know what? Brushing my teeth sometimes and standing for that long, like I had to hold on to the sink, coughing and laughing were
Uh,
so painful. And it's crazy. You don't think about it. I have a niece who was my everything, and her and I laugh a lot. And whenever she would come visit me, of course, we would laugh a little bit, and I would have to stop and I would start laughing, and then I would end up with a little bit of tears because of the pain.
pain.
So it was a journey, and it still is. I'm not out of it, but the first 2 weeks are rough, right? It's your body telling you you have to do nothing and sleep and lay down and eat because things have to come back together. And they are. So I'm almost 2 months in. I'm back to walking. I just started working out with super light weights a couple weeks ago. I can run. I run here and there a little bit. I can do most things. I think the only thing I really feel now is that my energy levels, I still get tired kind of quickly sometimes. Like that's and they tell me that that's normal. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks for it to heal the wound and everything, but really it takes 6 months for everything to kind of be.
Go back to normal.
Mhm. And I'm just happy that I did it. I feel lighter.
Mm.
My scar is so tiny, and you know what? Now I'm proud of it. Now I have this beautiful story to tell people that there's support out there. And I didn't know this before my surgery, and I don't know why. I was so afraid. The fear had me paralyzed, but there are so many support groups on Instagram, on Facebook, on doctors' websites, like so many support groups. There are doctors are not the same. I highly recommend going and talking to a few doctors because I didn't like my first doctor, and I think that was part of my whole experience, and I
Yeah.
just didn't want to. I knew it. I didn't want anything to do with that doctor, and I didn't really trust myself, but I'm glad I found another doctor that I loved. Um, it, it's something else that I realized too is our bodies are incredibly strong. They're incredibly capable of healing. You want to know what messed with me more? It was my mind. Because I had fear, my mind would make me think I wasn't capable of doing certain things. And it was just fear the whole time. And really, my body, look, like I can dance again. I can almost do yoga. Like And I know that in the next month and the next month, and I'm just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. But my mind was so afraid. And honestly, our minds sometimes trick us, but our bodies can do it. I'm doing it.
Very nice. Wow, Nathalie, what a beautiful story. The
Oh,
recovery, and I think you feeling back to yourself again. No?
I'm getting there. Yeah, I'm definitely getting there. Like if another thing I want to say too is don't wait. Like if you're feeling, and not even for fibroids, if you're having any kinds of issues with your reproductive body as women, if you don't feel comfortable, if you're feeling something strange, if you're feeling something new, don't wait. Just go get help. Go to the doctor, go to more than one doctor, do research online. Like it's the biggest thing I probably would have told myself is that to go get help sooner.
If you would have got help sooner, what would have happened? What would have been different?
I realized that I spent a year and a half suffering in silence. I was suffering in silence. I was shaming my body. I was hating myself. I was at times feeling depressed because my clothes didn't fit and I looked pregnant. My periods, as I mentioned, my menstruations were horrible. Horrible. When I tell you
Mm.
that I would wake up sometimes and think that someone killed a person next to me, like it's a very uncomfortable thing. And I'm saying this because no one talks about it, but we should talk about it. If you're having extremely heavy menstruations, talk to a doctor. There's something, it's not normal. It, so had I done all of this sooner, I don't know. I feel like I would have been free from all that suffering that I was doing.
Such a important message you're sharing, Natalie, because I know a lot of women that they don't like to talk about their periods.
Hmm.
I'm sure they might feel some strange things, but we have this taboo over it, especially in different cultures. Um, and we don't talk about it, but it's a very important element. Actually, how your periods are happening and the pain or the being on time or not on time, these are all showing that your body's regulation is good. And if you don't have that routine, then something is up, then there's something
Hmm.
going on, and you need to
Hmm.
look into your body to see what's going on. And I'm thinking I should go check my uterus is
Good,
stable.
good. Because I'm gonna share something else too. Like 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed with fibroids during their life. That's 1 in 3.
Wow.
So the next time you're with two of your girlfriends, think about it. Like one of you might get diagnosed with fibroids, and not to scare you, right? It's this. This is all for you information, and I'm sharing my journey so that no one else has to experience this ever. But that's a lot. That's a lot of women that are going to have this diagnosis. And granted, it could be a fibroid and it can be this tiny. It doesn't matter as long as you're aware of it and you know what to do and you know what to eat and you know how to work out and you know how to sleep, because there are ways of keeping your body healthier.
Do you know? So now the doctor is saying your body will create those again. Are they ways that
So
you have
that
to?
is that is a
Um,
great that is a really great question. So yes, can you fibroids grow for me? Yes, it's definitely possible. And it's very likely because my mom had them, I have them.
mhm.
So is it possible that more fibroids will grow? Of course.
So what
However,
are the steps to
so
stop it?
go to the doctor every year. Get get the sonograms, look inside, not just go to the doctor like with the doctor, right? Like make sure you're asking for a sonogram. Like they need to see inside,
Of your
eating
uterus?
inside of your uterus and all of it,
And
the
it
ovaries.
doesn't come out, doesn't grow outside of your uterus, no?
No. Um, I think there, again, I'm not a doctor. There are things that can grow outside of your uterus, but I don't think that they're called fibroids. There's something else. Um, so annual visits, talking to your doctor, being aware of yourself. Like, I felt that little bump when I would meditate over 2 years ago. And then it grew into that picture that I shared. So once you feel something different, go address it. Eating. Oh my goodness. So I'm not there yet. However, I get to change my diet. I get to change my diet because lentils, chickpeas, spinach, certain foods are very good for maintaining really, really good reproductive health for women. So I'm learning, this is my new journey, right? Like because I don't want to experience ever again. And if it does come back in the future, my doctor, who's amazing, he told me that they'll be so small that they won't need to do the same kind of surgery if that happens, right? That they could do it with the little machine and go in and do a little laser. And so it will never be as big as it was this past time, which is also good for me, right? Because
Mhm.
no one wants to do this twice. I don't ever
Yeah.
want to do this again, ever. So
One time, that's it.
one time was good. Yeah, unless it's, if God willing, I have a child and it has to be a C-section. Yes. Other than that, no,
Yeah.
thank you. No, thank you. But yeah, that was a really good question, Matilda. They can grow back.
So, does your doctor tell you, or maybe things that you researched on, things that maybe you shouldn't eat? So it won't.
Yes.
So
Mostly,
maybe we
mostly,
can learn from your experience as well.
so mostly it's things that I should eat, right? Like foods high in potassium, foods high in fiber, vitamin D. Is it vitamin D? Yes, vitamin D. There, it sounds funny, but a lot of the typical things that people that are healthy, right, for everyone, are the same. It's the same things, like getting a lot of fruits and vegetables in your diet every day, less processed foods, less high, you know, foods high in fat. All those things help because if you're fueling your body in the correct way. But again, I'm still learning. I'm still doing some new recipes, and I've incorporated a lot of spinach, like a lot of spinach. Like I'm always eating spinach now. Um, so it's a learning curve for me. The recovery is a very real journey, and I feel very blessed that my scar, my incision, did not get infected. It's healing very nicely. I didn't have any complications. I did take it easy for 3 weeks, and which was hard for me. I'm always on the go, but I did nothing. So it's a journey, and it's a part of the story because there's no magic thing that can be like, oh, now you're fine, right? Like I get to work on it. I get to work on loving my area, like my abdomen. I get to love my abdomen because I spent 2 years secretly telling myself, why? You hate me. I hate you. What are you doing? Uh, That's a lot of work I get to put into myself again.
Very nice. So listen, Natalie, if one lesson you've learned from
Yes.
this, what it is, this experience.
You know what? Do not suffer in silence. And it's not just for health issues, or at least women reproductive health issues. This goes for mental health issues. This goes for emotional issues. Like, do not suffer in silence. It, you're just damaging yourself in that situation.
Hmm. Wow. Natalie, this is very important lesson that you're sharing
Mm-hmm.
because, lots of people, um, I mean, when you suffer in silence, other psychological problems you start
Mm-hmm.
developing,
Mm-hmm.
and depression is one of the signs. So, when you love yourself and you love your body and whatever even is happening to you, to be open to it so you can go and get help. It's an important lesson for all of us because, you know, we face it one day or another, something similar like this. So
Mhm.
I'm very grateful that you're sharing this experience with us, because I'm sure even men will benefit from this session. And remember that, your body is your temple, and you
Mm.
need to honor it every
Yes.
way possible. Because if one day the body doesn't work properly with you, then you have a problem.
Hmm. And again, our bodies are so strong. Are they're so incredibly resilient and strong, and I'm grateful for you, Matilda, and your questions and this opportunity to share my story. This is the first time I do this. This is the first time I've talked about it from the beginning to right now, and thank you for listening. I hope you get some really great things out of it, and I'll continue. I'll let you know in another 6 months how I'm doing on my healing journey.
Beautiful. Thank you, Natalie, again. Thank you for sharing your journey, the emotional journey.
Mm.
And yeah, so I'm gonna go and check my
Go to the doctor. That's okay. So, second most important thing, go to the doctor. That's the other thing.
Very good. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, listeners. Till next time. Ciao.